What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast this Christmas week. Everybody will be smiling, man. It's a bright and shiny Monday morning out here, especially for Auburn fans, maybe getting a little early Christmas presents, especially with this basketball team. I can tell you that. I mean, we got so much stuff to talk about this Monday. We'd be remiss if we didn't start with basketball. I mean, the dadgum best team in the country, and I'll argue with anybody on that for sure. So, again, we're not technically number one in the poll, but we are in every other stinking category that there's a possible metric on out there. Auburn's the number one ranked team in the nation. And I think this week they'll be the number one team, especially after they dismantled Purdue the way they did, Randy. And, again, Tennessee still hadn't lost, but I don't think that matters. And, hey, the college football playoffs this weekend, golly, we were on Saturday and we talked about that. And Auburn just got a massive pickup in the portal this morning as we woke up. Kind of happened overnight, I guess, or they released it. And Eric Singleton, and just got a lot, man. And good to hear from everybody. And we'll be taking your comments throughout the program.
Well, it was a great weekend. I do want to start with basketball, and what a run for this Auburn basketball program leading into the SEC play. If you'd ask all of us before the season started that we would go to Maui and win a championship the way that we did, and the lone loss that we would have going into SEC play would be an on-the-road loss by less than 10 points at Duke, and Duke playing the way that they are. You know, Auburn's got the best player in the country right now, and Duke's got the second best player in the country. And that second best player in the country, and Cooper Flagg, had to play well, especially in the post against Auburn, to give them a chance to win, and they pulled that off. But I think the further we get removed from that loss, the less that it's gonna hit, because all of us that watched that night knew that Auburn, probably on a neutral site, could beat that same Duke team. And so what a run, what a great job by Bruce Pearl and this staff to, you know, take a few little issues that popped up here and there, but to take this team with a couple of new faces and maybe a few that aren't playing up to the potential that we had hoped to see, namely J.P. Pegues, but to not lose anything at the guard position and see some newcomers that are starting to make a splash, like Tahad Pettiford and Ja'Kai Howard, who over the last few weeks have just really jumped off the page at me, Brett, to go along with this great senior class. It's the best basketball team we've ever had. I don't think that there's even a good debate for that. And enjoy it while you got it. I'll say that, because it's going to be tough to replace some of these older guys. But what a job by Bruce Pearl, Brett.
This basketball team may be rivaling one of the best basketball teams of all time, period, not just Auburn. There's no doubt it's the best team in Auburn history. And I've got a fun little thing that I want to throw out there and get your top 5 Auburn basketball players of all time and where do they rank and how do they rank, and saw some lists this weekend. And, you know, it's eye-opening. You know, you're going to look at Auburn basketball pre-Bruce Pearl and post-Bruce Pearl. And that's really how you have to look at this program, because pre-Bruce Pearl, there were flashes in the pan at best. Post-Bruce Pearl, or into the Bruce Pearl era, and then when Bruce Pearl leaves, you're going to look at this program as a national contender every single year once he got his feet on the ground and he got this program established. So, you know, I'm excited about what this team can do. We've seen great basketball teams in the past make runs and not win a national championship. It's hard. It's hard to do that in this sport. But I can tell you this: I'll take my chances with this team. And Janai Broome, it was great to see that he was really, non-affected by that shoulder injury a few days ago. He's in perfect condition. I mean, I'm sure it's sore, like he said, but it didn't affect the way he played against a very good Purdue team. And then you watch how Kentucky lost to Ohio State by 20, and then we just toyed with Ohio State. I mean, that just tells you, man. And again, I know on any given night, somebody can knock you off when you're not playing well, and somebody can have a hot hand. Look, like Duke, that kid scored 18 points in the first half, and he didn't even take a shot in the second half. I don't think he scored anything since that game. That can happen in basketball. That one guy can have one night and ruin it for you. So, but I think somebody's going to have to do that in an NCAA tournament. Teams are going to have to really play out of their mind to beat this team if Auburn plays consistent basketball, Randy. And look, if Duke played Auburn on a neutral floor, I'd take Auburn by 10 points. I really would.
I would too. And I think that most that watched that game that night would say the same. I've said this over and over, and I'm going to say it again this morning. The beauty of this Auburn team is they aren't dependent on an inside or an outside game. One can be down one night or the next, and they still can win basketball games. And that's not what we could say with that Jared Harper and Bryce Brown era. We needed to shoot the ball exceptionally well from the perimeter for that team to consistently beat very good teams. That is not the case now. Auburn can win a game hitting 5 or 6 3-pointers, shooting at 6 for 18 or 6 for 20 from 3, and can still dominate the paint and win basketball games. And, you know, I think that is the separator between this team and some other great teams that we've seen come out of this conference. You know, I go back to those 2 Florida teams that won back-to-back national championships, Brett. That's how they were set up. You could come out and they may shoot your eyeballs out from the perimeter, but they may come out and not really shoot it that well, but they would bang you. And with those 2 post guys that they had, and they had 2 of the best in the country during that stretch.
Right.
And that's the beauty of what Bruce Pearl's built here, and a lot of elder statesmen too. So you don't watch this Auburn team and think from a physicality standpoint that they're going to ever be overwhelmed with anybody that we match up with. So there's nothing at all negative to say about this group. The only thing that is worthy of discussing is some of these names that are going to maybe get more minutes as the season moves on and how much they can help us. Because Chaney Johnson didn't have to do much, but he did step behind the 3-point arc the other night or the other afternoon and knock down 2 threes. And I don't know if that's what you expect from Chaney Johnson, but it's not what I expect. But it sure is nice to know that he could step back along with Janai and hit 2 or 3 3-pointers in a game to go along with those guards. And I can't say enough good things. Maybe a good place to start is how much I really like the way that Tahad Pettiford plays the basketball.
Well, that's a great segue, Randy, and something I want to talk about. I'll let you keep going, but I want to talk about that.
Well, I just love his demeanor. I love his emotion. I love that he smiles from time to time. It's not always some grim reaper look out there for him. He's enjoying himself.
He's having fun.
And he is defending his own ball defense is outstanding. It is so good. And he'll take away your dominant hand, and you can tell that's been ingrained in him coming from that great high school program out of New Jersey that he's coming from.
Right.
He just makes everything difficult, and he's got a different aura about him when shots start going down. You don't know when he's going to jack one up, but I've gotten to like or appreciate that he knows when he gets hot, and he knows when it's time for him to go get his, and he can go get them in bunches. And we've had some point guards over the years that I really like. I would put Doc Robinson currently in maybe my top 5 players all time at Auburn just because of the durability that he had and how much we won during his era when he was the point guard there at Auburn. Jared Harper, of course, would be another one that I would consider to put in there. But I think Tahad Pettiford may be the best of the bunch. From a point guard standpoint, from a guy that may end up in the NBA making a massive splash, I think Tahad Pettiford's that guy.
Well, what made Jared Harper and Bryce Brown so good is they hit shots in very key moments, in clutch opportunities.
Free throws too, Brett.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Todd Pettiford does. You know,
Yep.
We've missed this since Jared Harper and Bryce Brown left. We haven't had that guard that we felt comfortable just stepping up and popping a big three, and you felt confident that when he shot it, it was going to go in. All right, listen to the guard production from last year to this year. When you had Aiden Holloway and Trey Donaldson out there playing, Auburn was 38.3% from the field, 33.3% from behind the arc, 14 points per game, 5.9 assists per game, and they were 77% from the free throw line. All right, so kind of just keep all that logged in your mind. Now, just to this point in the season with Denver and Tahad at point guard, 45.4% from the field. That's a jump of almost 8%. 44.3% from three. That's almost 12% better from outside the arc. That's what I was talking about there with that clutch three. 22.6 points per game, up from 14 points per game. I mean, that's another 8 points, almost 9 points you're getting from your point guard play. And how many times have we talked about that the last several years? We got to have more production out of our guards, got to have more production out of our guards. And that's that. 5.6 assists per game and 95.5% from the free throw line, comparable to 77.8%. Do you think Auburn upgraded at the point guard position a little bit?
And you don't even bring up defense.
No, I didn't even talk about the defense yet.
And that's needed to be talked about too, though, because from a physicality standpoint, there is zero comparison between Aiden Holloway and Todd Pettiford. None. And the issue with Aiden Holloway, he's first off, I hate it for JP Pegues, but they're the imps of one another. They're not physical and explosive enough to get shots consistently. And when they are defending, they're not putting a strong enough frame up top to, and, I go back to that Miami game in the Sweet 16 that we lost and how much our guards, mainly Wendell Green, got out physical. It cost us the game.
Got to be used.
That won't happen with this group. It's not going to happen. We may lose, and, it's tough to get through everything. But I do know going in, it won't be because our guard plays less physical than whoever we match up with. That will not be the case. It won't be because they don't play as well in the perimeter of what we've seen on ball defense. And, Zep Jasper and that group, they could really get after you. But when you matched up with a really physical guard, it was always a struggle.
Man, that chart I sent you guys this week, the assist to turnover ratio versus offensive production. I mean, this is Auburn's the one lone dot at the top of the screen, and everybody else is kind of bunched in the middle. And then you got a few that have kind of progressed out there toward where Auburn is. But, man, I ain't ever in my life seen how dominant. I mean, the stats right now through the first third of the season for Auburn are unlike you've seen. And again, this is a team that's rivaling the best college basketball teams of all time since they've kept these stats, And again, Auburn's got to get in SEC play, and it's hard. But you heard Painter come out this week and talk after the Purdue game, and he said, "Look, man, they can definitely win it all." And he was just very complimentary of the team. And Randy, we're playing good teams. I mean, we got 6 quad one wins already. When was the last time Auburn had 6 quad one wins in an entire season?
Well, they haven't. They haven't had it in the entire history of the program.
That's right. It's my point. Is that you got 6 quad one victories and you ain't even gotten into SEC play yet.
And it's not necessarily quad one. I know it's like top 5, top 10 wins that are separating this Auburn team from some teams in the past. But and it's the way they're winning the games. We are not knocking down free throws and winning games by 3 points at the end.
Right.
No, I mean, we're like clearing our bench and watching a 27-point lead go down to 19 and looking at each other and going, man, I wish we'd have kept that above 20. That's where we are right now.
That's exactly what I was thinking when we were watching the game Saturday. I'm like, crap, they've crawled back in this thing and cut it to 20. I'm like, that again, but that is we're a little spoiled right now. But I think what the point here is, I'm not sure you'll ever put together a team as good as this team. You're going to have great teams moving forward, no doubt. But to have this chemistry and this conglomeration of players and the way they're playing right now, and Randy, you could take, like Braden told me yesterday, he said, Daddy, we could take our next 5 and go make another team and go make a run in the NCAA tournament. We got 2 rosters. And I showed y'all that graphic a few weeks ago about how they ranked the top starting lineups in college basketball, the top 25. Auburn had 2 in the top 4. That's how good this team is. It's really
well. That's also, Brett. I think we can't throw enough positive words towards Bruce Pearl and his staff, but I think one thing that we're getting in basketball that we're not getting in football is development. So it's time to look and see how much development we've gotten from some of these guys. One, Chaney Johnson. Chaney was a good player last year, but I didn't see the confidence level that we see now on the offensive end at all. But now you're getting immense confidence. And if there was ever a game that was really close and I were to tell you, well, Chaney went for 22 and he was the reason we won that basketball game, you wouldn't be surprised. Let's think back 2 or 3 years with Dylan Cardwell. If I were to tell you that Dylan Cardwell is going to, get you 16 points and 8 rebounds in an SEC game, and he's going to be the key on the offensive side, that the reason that we win the basketball game, you'd have said, Randy, you're crazy. He's going to be physical. He's going to play with emotion. He's going to block some shots, but there's no way offensively he's going to be a big-time performer here for Auburn. That's development, man. And Ira Bowman, Bruce Pearl gives a lot of that credit to Ira Bowman, and I had the good fortune of being around with the father-son basketball camp that they have, at least watching the way that these coaches interact with one another. And I'm really, really impressed with him and this entire staff. But it's development, Brett. And I wish we could get that on the offensive side for football. But right now, buddy, we can get it on the basketball side. And all of these guys that are hanging around, CBM is
he'd be the best player on most everybody else's team.
He is a way better basketball player right now than he was this time last year, though. It's not even close. Denver Jones is he's playing the point. If I would have told you this time last year that Denver was going to be considered the point guard, and when he's got the basketball with his physical frame, that you feel good about that, I don't know, man. I don't see the explosiveness.
No.
But now, when Denver's in there, I don't know what the metric is with the difference between certain lineups and certain players. What is that metric called where you weigh that when a certain player's in the game, how much of a plus minus they are on the overall outcome?
Right.
When Denver Jones in the basketball game, it's got to be immense. Am I off? I mean, when he's in a basketball game,
on both sides,
we are defending so tough. He's playing so physical up top. He's knocking down shots. I think we know how good he is, but I don't think we give him near enough credit for how great a basketball player he is right now.
Well, let me read off some more stats. And Glenn said, are y'all putting AU on the trophy even before SEC play? Remember, everyone has a chance in the tournament. I'm not giving – if you heard me a minute ago, Glenn, I said anybody can win in basketball.
Yeah.
The best teams. But let me tell you what I am saying. There's not a better team in the country than Auburn. There's not. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Auburn's going to win the national championship. I'm saying Auburn's got the best team in the country. And to me, it's not close. I mean, there's some good teams, but you can't find a team that's as put together as this team. And here's the reason. Up until this point, now things could fall apart. You can get injuries and things could change. But I'm going to say this: Auburn's 11-1 overall right now. They're top 10 strength of schedule, which is an obvious, right? 6-1 against quad 1 games. And guess how many of them were at home? 0. All 7 quad 1 games were played away from Neville Arena. Scoring margin is plus 84 in quad 1 games. Scoring margin outside of quad 1 is plus 192. All right. 2 wins versus 2 AP top 5 teams. There's nobody with a resume that is even close to that. And look, Glenn said Tennessee Auburn will be pay-per-view. Have you seen the price on those tickets?
No.
$4,000 plus in some areas.
Unbelievable.
For a basketball game that lasts 40 minutes, by the way. I want you to understand that. 2
rabid fan bases that are just dying for something to grab a hold of because our football teams have been in the pits for so – I know it, but – you can say whatever you want about that football team, Brett, but the way that they traveled reminds me of Auburn.
It looks just like us, doesn't it?
Man, they
showed up, man.
They show up, and hell, they may get a bad product, and we a lot of times get a terrible product. But I tip my hat to Tennessee fans.
They keep showing up, man.
Yes, they do. They spend the money. They make it just like Auburn at Cameron. I mean, you're looking around, and Kirk Herbstreit's going, I don't think I've ever seen an opposing team come into Ohio State and and show up the way that they have. Now, their football team didn't show up, but the fans, I mean, there's not much we can do about that as a fan. No. But Auburn and basketball, and my gosh, if we can ever get this football thing going back in a positive direction, we'll show up there too. But I did want to tip my hat to Tennessee. That was impressive how they showed up on.
Well, we're going to talk. We're going to
this
talk
past
about.
Week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. The college football playoff first round was less than stellar all the way around. But just to close out basketball, Auburn with Monmouth coming up, one more non-conference game, and then they'll be into SEC play. And you're right. You know, it's a different animal when you get in SEC play because it's twice a week and it's brutal and everybody's good. I'm just going to go ahead and say everybody's good. All 16 teams in this league are good, and especially they're good when you are not in your building. Now, Auburn in their building is beyond good. Nobody hardly ever comes into that building in the last 3 or 4 years and gets out alive. Kentucky did it last year, but we had just come off a massive win earlier in the week against South Carolina where they were the number one team in the league, and we beat them by 40. So, you know, sometimes you just have – I hate to say that Kentucky was a letdown game for Auburn last year, but, you know, game day was there and all that. But, man, you know, you ride those emotions. That's why basketball's so crazy. It's hard to get up and play at the highest level every single night you go on the floor, but you have to do that in SEC play if you want a chance to win a lot of your games. So you're not going to go through this league undefeated. Nobody's saying Auburn's going to do that, but I love our chances of being, you know, when the dust settles, Auburn being at the top of this league and getting in the tournament, not going out in the first dadgum round this year, okay? Let's just do that. Let's just go and get in the tournament, maybe get a number one seed and get a good path and get our butts in at least the Sweet 16. And then when you get there, man, everybody's playing good, and you got to play great to try to win a championship. But let's try to get to that point in the season. Be shocked if we don't,
but I'll say exactly what you just said. The SEC is so strong this year, and 2 of the top 5 teams in the country are sitting right here in the state of Alabama, and I'm here for it. It's a great thing. Alabama's they'd have to ride a great Sears play, I think, to get to a championship form this year. I do think Auburn's got the better team between the two, but it doesn't mean that that's the way things are going to hold up. And we've come a long way in a decade, Brett. 12, 15 years ago, we didn't want to see either of those teams. I'll keep bringing this up because we always go back to the footage of it. But me, you, and Justin went to an Auburn basketball game, and Auburn, I think, beat Alabama 53-49. And I'll never forget walking out going, how many dunks did y'all see this afternoon? I think it was an afternoon game. And
it was none.
There was one dunk in the basketball game. One dunk. One dunk. And I was thinking Saturday as Auburn looked like during Phi Slamma Jama running up and down the court. I think we have come a long, long way since I walked out of Auburn Arena with Brett and Justin against an Alabama game where neither team hardly scored 50 points, and you didn't see there wasn't a pro even in the stands watching. Well, that's how pitiful.
Why would they waste their time?
No, I mean, we've come a lot
better things to do, like walk through briar patches and pour hot grease on their arms and stuff like that. Justin sent me a snapshot of the current prices on StubHub, I believe, or maybe SeatGeek, one of the Vivid Seats, one of those 3 or 4 ticket services. Alabama, the last game in Neville Arena this year on March 8th. Right now, in certain sections, it's over $2,500 a ticket. Don't you understand what I just said? 25. Now they're down there close to the floor. Now you can get you a great seat up in the rafters for $1,700. You know, there's some that are around $800, $900, but man, you ain't getting in that building. Probably if you want to go ahead and buy a ticket, now's the time. And I know that sounds crazy, but those tickets are only going to go up in price. They're not going to go down in price. So Justin said that thinks we donated a can of corn to get in. Exactly. I mean, I've been saying the Campbell soup forever. And this is no kidding. I want y'all to remember there were days in Verdes Memorial Coliseum where they had food drives. I'm not kidding. If you brought a canned good, you got in for free.
Our good friend, I know exactly where we got tickets during that stretch. Was our good friend Thomas Sparrow.
Yeah.
Thomas had tickets, and he'd reach out to me Thomas, if you're out there, if you ever tune in, if anybody says Randy talking about you, I love Thomas, and his dad was over Beard Eves for a long time, just a great businessman over in the Auburn area. But Thomas would reach out to us multiple times a year and say, "You want some tickets?" And I mean, we'd be like, "Yeah, we'll take them." And we'd go in, and it'd be about half full. And it was
half full.
it was a pitiful product we were putting out there back then.
Yeah, it was pathetic. All right, hey, look, let's move out of that. We know Auburn's the best basketball team in the country. We're proud to be that, and man, so much fun every time that team goes out on the floor. And we're not going to go undefeated in conference play, but it's going to take great effort by a lot of teams on a given night to beat us. All right. Where do we go from here, man? It's a lot of different places. I'll start with Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly, that's a big blow to Auburn's football team. Losing Charles Kelly, he's the head coach at Jacksonville State now. So Auburn's going to have to move some guys around the defensive side. But nobody, look, Eric, you look at, the two safeties that we got, and neither one of those guys, I saw, Winters post like a couple broken heart emojis on Twitter, and I think Anquan Fagans retweeted that that he had moved on to Jacksonville State. But they haven't asked to get out of playing at Auburn. Again, it's emotional when you have ties with guys that recruit you and all, but they have ties with other guys on that staff as well. So I know Charles Kelly was a big part of that, but they had to buy into Auburn too, and it looks like they're going to stay, but coaches come and go, players come and go. It's the world we live in now. So that's a big blow. But Auburn this morning, Randy, I've told y'all this and sent y'all some information this morning. And you and I have been saying this for about 3 weeks now. There's no excuses moving forward for Hugh Freeze. And Eric Singleton chooses Auburn this morning. By some publications, was the number one player in the portal. He was definitely the number one receiver in the portal. Now Auburn in their portal class has Horatio Fields, who's the number 8 receiver, Jackson Arnold, who's a top 5 quarterback in the portal, Xavier Chaplin, who was ranked the number 3 offensive tackle, and Mason Murphy, who is the number 5 offensive tackle. To go along with this recruiting class where Auburn got 8 out of the top 10 in the state of Alabama. The only 2 they didn't get were Zion Grady and Naeem Alford. You get Jared Smith, Anquan Fagans, Eric Winters, Derek Smith, Alvin Henderson, Jacaleb Falk, Antonio Coleman, and Malik Autry. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't want to talk about Auburn not having bullets in the gun anymore, not having the roster to go out and win football games. It's there now.
And tip your hat to Hugh Freeze. We'll sit on here, and I promise you, if I watch him go up on a presser again, I'll blast him again if he makes excuses for it. But when it's time to tip your hat to your coach, let's do it. And he is putting together a tremendous squad. Now the question is, can we develop and can we coach them up? Because I told you after watching Deuce Knight play in that Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game a couple of weekends ago, if we don't develop him, I give up. Auburn can't develop a quarterback if you can't develop Deuce Knight. From the skill set and the demeanor, when you put a mic in front of him, I want him talking. All of the above is what I think about us getting Deuce Knight. And Singleton's a big get this morning. It's at a position where you would guess that Auburn's got some depth right now, but when you're able to go out there like we did with KLS last year, there's a difference between these guys that have already proven that they're one of the top receivers in the country and those that we hope become top receivers in the country. And I think the only thing it does for those guys that are on campus currently, like Malcolm, like some of these other guys that are trying to find their way, is you're going to be pushed. And you can either back down from being pushed or you can go and compete with them and prove that you're better than the ones that we've got coming in. So Hugh Freeze is doing a great job of retaining the ones that we have, like Malcolm and Perry and others. Cam's already shown this year, especially the end of the season, that we know what we're going to get out of Cam Coleman. We need to get more, but you can already see the others have had their moments, but it's going to be needed moving forward for them to keep getting pushed. And Auburn's not backing off. Auburn's not taking away any of that competition in that room. They're going and adding to it, Brett.
Well, I think as a program, I think we talked about this, as Daniel said, I don't know about y'all. I just want a winning record. Amen. Amen to that, Daniel. I hear you 1,000%. You have to go out and replace production, okay? And you can't just say, man, we got a loaded wide receiver room, we're good. And some of those guys like Bryce Kane and Perry Thompson really didn't get on the field. So, it's still speculation at this point. Yeah, they came out of high school highly touted, but really the only two guys that got any considerable playing time was Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons. And so you lost Robert Lewis, you lost KLS. I mean, you lost Rivaldo Fairweather. You lost a lot of guys. You lost Camden Brown, even though Camden Brown never really produced what we thought he could produce. He was
a lot of snaps, though.
He was in the game. And then Caleb Burton was in that room. He's gone now. So what do you do? Just go, well, we're good with what we got, and then you get a couple injuries, and you don't even have enough to run out on the field now. You got to go get your task as a coach, and you're responsible for going out and replacing production and building that room up. It ain't a slide at anybody in the room. It's like, hey, man, I got to get you some help in here. We got to have a room that we had that was similar to last year's room. And, again, it's up to each one of y'all to go out during practice to develop and see how much better you can get. So and fight to see who gets on the field and who gets a majority of the snaps. So, when you look at this thing on paper, again, this wide receiver room, Randy, I'd put up against anybody's in the country. I mean, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, now Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields, Bryce Kane, Perry Thompson. The list goes on and on and on. I mean, this thing is slap loaded. Now you add Jackson Arnold to the mix and Deuce Knight as quarterback. And then you add, Ashton Daniels, I think a lot of people may be sleeping on a little bit. This kid's coming in here to fight his rear end off. And he was highly touted coming out of high school in Georgia, who chose to go to Stanford. So he's coming back closer to home, and he's rejuvenated as well. So I love that our quarterback room feels upgraded and that our wide receiver room maintained itself and maybe took a step up now with Eric Singleton.
Well, I'll go back to what you started with. I can already sense that I'm going to head into next year with this big rosy, positive outlook. I know that you're not. But here's where I'm going in, though. Zero. I'm talking zero chances for a coach to get on camera and have any excuse at all. Because the problem with excuses, it gives everyone else that's around you an excuse. If you're a leader that constantly says, did you see what I inherited? Did you see where we're having to come from? Yeah, I saw it, but I tell you what, it's year 3, and I'm about sick of hearing you say it. And I think the players need to have more positive talk of, no, we can compete. No, we can be good. We're going to have to develop, and yes, we're going to have a quarterback that hasn't taken the snap at Auburn, taking the lead snap next year, but we got all the pieces in place to be very good in this league. Now, will we win a SEC championship or a national title? No, but do I think we can compete to get in that playoff? You're darn right.
We should.
You're darn right. And I'm hopeful that Hugh Freeze takes that angle in communicating, because what you say, all of the back and forth that he and Peyton Thorne had this year was a bad look.
It was.
No part of that was handled professionally by either one.
No.
At all. And Hugh Freeze is the one that we pay to handle it professionally. Mm-hmm. You can say that Peyton Thorne didn't say near the stuff that I felt like Hugh Freeze.
If anything, I thought Peyton Thorne took the high road.
Agree.
A lot of times.
So that was an ugly look. And it is the reason that a lot of times we end up on here, because we are getting a very poor product on the field.
We are Tennessee, man.
Man, we are 4 straight years of losing football at Auburn. And way too many years in between over the last 15 where we've been subpar or mediocre at best.
You remember me saying probably a year and a half ago, maybe even less, that we're Tennessee post Philip Fulmer, how we used to say how fast Auburn would always come back from being really bad, those flashes in the pan. We've now settled into pure mediocrity from a result standpoint. We are Tennessee's football program post Philip Fulmer right now. And Auburn with 4 losing seasons, like Daniel just came on here and said, I just like a daggum winning record at this point. We have had 4 losing records, man. That has never happened in mine in your lifetime. I just want that to sink in. That does not happen often at Auburn. And so everybody's tired of it. The fans show up. It's time to get a product that's comparable to the support that they're getting. And
I think it's very important that you say that I think we're there. I don't think we're getting there. I think we're there. I think it's time for Auburn to say that. And if you don't perform at that point, what does it matter? Really, I mean, but somebody's got to be positive in that room. And
where are we not there that? Let's be honest. Let's analyze that. Where are we not there yet at? What position?
Well, I mean, you can make an argument that a lot of the positions that we're counting on are young. And I get that, but everybody else's is too.
I mean, my Lord.
And you look at Alabama.
Is Jeremiah Smith young at Ohio State? He looks like a man amongst boys.
I mean,
I ain't buying that crap anymore.
I agree. So I do think what is said about our program matters from internal. The internal part of, no, we're not watching Georgia play and thinking we can't compete with them anymore. No, we don't look across the state post Nick Saban and think we can't compete anymore. And until our coaching staff starts saying that, then I think we'll always have an excuse in the back of our mind on why we can't put a good product out there consistently. I do want to go back to a comment that you made on Charles Kelly. I haven't looked at it much this weekend, but what direction's Auburn going in to replace him, Brett? Has that been discussed?
Well, not really. I mean, nobody's really come out and said how they're going to shift guys around.
Do they just want to shift, or are they going out to actually find a replacement?
I think now you've lost 2 defensive assistants. So now you're going to have to probably go out and find one.
Let me bring one up. I hated seeing him go anyway, and you know this. Why in the hell would Auburn not go back and get Travis Williams?
Travis Williams, yep.
Why? I mean, unless Hugh Freeze just doesn't want any of that old Auburn blood regime in, guy can recruit.
Got Marcus Davis in there right now, and he's one of the best recruiters we got.
Travis Williams is a tremendous recruiter. He's got high passion. He is an Auburn guy through and through. Has put a really good product out there for Auburn. Why would we not go get him and just pay him whatever's needed? Because
I don't know.
He's going to recruit up to a standard that's going to help you there. So he's worth every penny that you spend. And he's already proven that he can put great products out there at linebacker or wherever you need him. And maybe you couldn't get him away from the defense coordinator role there at Arkansas, but I would think that the right money you could. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Is there anybody else you'd rather see come back to Auburn than him?
No. I mean, there's, I liked a lot of those former Auburn player assistant coaches we've had. I like Trevon Reed. I know.
Agree.
I mean, he was a great recruiter. I think, look, nobody knows your program better than former players. And I think Auburn has produced some outstanding assistant coaches that are at other schools right now doing well. I mean, Georgia's had a boatload of them. Arkansas's had them. I mean, you can go down the list. We've got them all over the place. And I think that says a lot about our guys, that they move on and they can go to different programs and they can be successful, that they can dang sure be successful at Auburn University. And they've proven that. So, obviously right now, TJ Russian was promoted to the D-line. Or to the edge rusher position, and now you're going to probably have to move. Maybe he takes over that position that Charles Kelly has now that he's exited, and you go out and get somebody else to move into that role. So I'm with you. You got to go get somebody. Somebody else has to be moved in, and so we'll have to see. We'll follow that. Nothing is in stone right now, so. Like Justin said, Williams is a D coordinator, and again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Travis Williams would come back with DJ Durkin being the D coordinator. I don't know if you'd pay them co-D coordinator pay, and I don't know
Well,
how
that's
works.
what Charles Kelly was, wasn't
He was co-defense coordinator, right?
Well, okay. I mean, call it whatever the hell you want to call it. I mean, but get somebody that makes you not take a giant step back in recruiting. And
that's the key, probably more than anything.
Yeah, I think that.
I mean, Charles Kelly's a good coach, no doubt about it. But the first thing that came out of everybody's mouth, including Friday when we were on the show, when we were talking to Christian Clemente, is he said, "But man, his recruiting, everything is. He's a good coach, but man, he was the top recruiter in the country in 23. I mean, it just tells you so." Justin brings up T-Rob. That'd be another big one.
I like Williams better.
So
I like T-Rob fine, but I don't. From a personality standpoint, I'd take Travis Williams every single day over him. There's some part of T-Rob that just feels like he'd rather bounce around. He doesn't feel like. And look, if I'm wrong, y'all let me know. This is just me watching. Travis Williams just carries himself like a straight up A-dog Auburn guy. And,
he does. He does.
And I like that. And I think we need that. And we need more of that. So if you've got an opportunity to go get him back, why not?
I'm with you. But again, to kind of move on from this topic, but Eric Singleton is added to this list of portal, and this portal class is stupid good. I mean, again, I'm living in Missouri still. I'm in the Show Me State. You're showing me in recruiting for sure.
Been showing us there.
Yeah, showing it big time though now with this class, and then this portal class coming off a 5-7 season. I don't know how anybody could argue with what Auburn's doing there. Now you got all the ingredients. You got to go bake a cake that doesn't taste like a mud pie. All right, a mud pie looks like a chocolate cake, but when you bite it, it don't taste like it. Auburn fans are ready to bite into something that actually tastes the way it looks. And so we got to get a product on the field. It's up to the coaches now. They got a great – hey, the portal window closes here in a few days, so you'll be pretty set with your roster going into the spring, and then we'll put all these pieces on the field. Now, majority of these recruits coming in high school are early enrollees. I read that off a few days ago here on this show. Most of them will be able to come in early. I think there's only like 2 or 3 out of the class that won't be coming in until the summertime. So excited for that. This could be a really, really talented group that's coming in that'll be there for spring. All right, college football playoff. We'll close with this. That was if you were looking for a start to the era of the college football playoff, that was not the start you wanted. That was a bust all the way around. There's no other way to spin it. Kirk Herbstreit pretty much went on out there and called his own network out on ESPN and said, I don't want to hear First Take. I don't want to hear College Game Day people. I don't want to hear anybody else getting ready to run any coach off up here at Ohio State, or I don't want to hear any more excuses of why this team deserved to be in because they went 11-1. He said, we've got to look at teams that play tough schedules, and we have got to take into consideration strength of schedule and how they played in those games. He said, it may take a little bit more work. It may take somebody actually digging in and giving a reason why this team is better than this one. And he's exactly right. We talked about it for weeks with Indiana having one game on their schedule, and they got beat. And it was like, I even said it, and you said it too, Randy. I said, I don't think they deserve to be in the top 12 anymore. They had one shot to prove that they deserve to be up there, and they got beat pretty handily. But because everybody took into consideration how many wins they had, they kept them up there. And you know what? That game actually turned out to be one of the closer games of the 4. Even though they were getting their doors blown off for 3.5 quarters, they did come back and cut it to 10. But that game was way over early. We know that. But that's how bad those games were. Now, Clemson, they actually, if they score down there, it's a one-score game. Clemson fought back. They were down big, but they fought back and played well to come back in that game. But those other 2 games, that SMU game was atrocious, horrific. And Tennessee, for whatever reason, got up there and just crapped all over the bed. They couldn't get anything going. Emi Aliava was out of place at quarterback. He just couldn't get anything going. It took him a quarter and a half to complete a pass. Tennessee was out of it before the game really got even started.
Well, two takes. One, these home matchups to start the playoffs are way bigger than maybe we even talked about. You know, getting a Southern team up north in, I mean, we're talking 10-degree weather.
Yeah.
That is a difficult matchup for any of us that go up there. You know, we're just not used to being in that type of weather. And I think that was maybe more of a storyline than even you and I talked about or anybody else talked about. But the second take is the way that Tennessee carried themselves before that game made me think that you don't have a lot of confidence. When you go running around out there with your shirt off and, you know, hell, how much it's kind of like the hoopla. I'm not trying to take away the rah-rah stuff totally, but we talked about this in high school and we've talked about this all the time. You know, how long does jumping around and screaming and yelling and rah-rah and constant for, 30 to 45 minutes before the game, how long does that
after
help?
the first
about
series,
30 damn seconds, that helps.
First series.
You know, I try to tell that to kids that I coach. You know, all of this screaming and yelling and jumping around, it's gone. So, like, either you got confidence in the way that you're about to play or you don't. And if you carry yourself before the game like you're wanting to build into this storyline.
Are you trying to show everybody that you're tough by running out there with no shirt? That's what you're trying to do? And
it's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. After all of that.
Hey, I will say this, and I don't know how it would have turned out, but I don't know if you were watching the first part of that game. Tennessee comes out, and Ohio State, if you remember, the last time they were on that field, looked horrendous.
Yeah.
They got beat by Michigan. Their first three plays on offense were horrible. They come out, Tennessee sacks the quarterback, but grabs the face mask.
Mm-hmm.
And one play, like Tennessee suffocated them on those three. It was going to be a 3-and-out and a punt to Tennessee. And that face mask gave them new life. They went down, and if you'll know, Jeremiah Smith ends up catching that touchdown pass, and they go up 7-0. I'm not saying that changed the game, but early in that game, where Ohio State fans were already on edge about how bad Will Howard and that offense had played, they had just gone 3-and-out, looked horrible, but they got new life with that. And, man, when they scored that touchdown, and then Tennessee comes out there and goes 3-and-out, now the snowball started rolling downhill. That's how crazy one play early in a game like that, especially on the road with a team that's trying to figure out if they still got some momentum offensively, how quickly that turned in that game.
Well, the overall demeanor of Tennessee the entire first half of that football game, they looked like a team beat. You know, watching them on defense, looking around at one another, you could sense that they didn't have an answer. They had no answers. So Ohio State they're the real deal, buddy. Those two running backs we'd all take. Their receiving
Judkins is phenomenal.
And the receiving core, Brett, we'd all take. I mean, of course, they're all 5-star plus guys. I mean, they're spending more money than anybody else on this roster, but their quarterback, if Howard plays the way that he did the other night,
right,
they can win a national championship.
Well, you know why he played that way? Because he had time. They showed a graphic on games that he's been rushed. And, man, and when he's got happy feet, just like every quarterback, you're going to be off target. Man, when you drop back and you can survey the field, you plant your feet and you can set and throw, he's as good as anybody in the country. And that's what Tennessee got, no rush. They had zero pass rush. He sat back there and he picked them apart. And you're right. Look, I think for Oregon, that's a bad – you did not want Ohio State to catch their breath, okay, because they came to your place and lost at the very end earlier in the year. Now you got to go play them in a bowl game. Ohio State will be ready to play in that bowl game.
I think they will. Oregon. Well, we'll know if Oregon's got the best team.
You will.
If they win that football game, they're head and shoulders above everybody else. It means Georgia can't beat them. Yeah, Georgia can beat all of us.
Do you like this love that Notre Dame's getting from everybody right now?
No, I watched that. No.
Everybody is talking them up big time right now.
I mean, did even watching them? I mean, there's no part of me that thinks that if Auburn would end up with Riley Leonard instead of Peyton Thorne, that it would have been much better. I don't believe that. I think Riley Leonard, I loved Riley Leonard at Fairhope High School. I probably made 50 posts on him, and I made more posts on his exploits on the basketball court than I did in football, Brett, if you remember. I mean, he was a high-flying, highlight reel athlete.
A lot of people thought he'd go basketball.
He was an amazing high school basketball player. Just go pull him up. Go pull him up on Twitter and just look at those highlight reels. I mean, he was skying over everybody in the 10th grade. So he's a tremendous athlete. But when I watch him play, he's a serviceable quarterback, but he's not the reason that I think a team would just go lean on him and he'd go win you a football game. Not that type of player. Now, in that type of atmosphere,
right
at home, Notre Dame could beat anybody this year. I do think parity's closed. I think we've closed the gap post Nick Saban. I don't watch any of these teams and go, including Georgia, and I don't go, if Georgia plays, good, not great, because if Georgia plays great, they probably will beat anybody. But if Georgia plays good, can any of these other teams beat them? And I think the answer this year is yes.
Oh, yeah, they can.
I think all of these teams have to play their best game to win a championship. And so that's a good part of parity. And maybe that's part of the reason this transfer portal is going to work out for hopefully teams like Auburn in the future.
All right, here's what you got coming up. Tuesday, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve, Penn State and Boise will play in the Fiesta Bowl at 6:30 p.m. Penn State's a 10.5-point favorite. Look, I thought Cam Newton brought up a great point yesterday or day before yesterday on his podcast. He's talking about Boise State, and he's talking about these teams. He said, look, Boise State ain't had to throw the ball this year because they've got Ashton Jeanty, and the competition they played pretty much is predicated just line up, run over. He said, what are they going to do when they have to throw the football 30 times in this game? He said, it's not about the team and taking a cut. He said, these guys are playing the giants of the industry, the Boise's, the SMUs. He said, they can't hold their own on the lines of scrimmage. He said, it ain't about how good your talent is on the perimeter or how good your quarterback is. He said, when you get your A whipped in the line of scrimmage on both sides, it becomes these games like we've seen this weekend. And so he's got a good point. He said, I'm going to be interested to see Boise State when he said, because Ashton Jeanty, in his opinion, isn't going to just line up and run over Penn State. They're going to force Boise State to have to throw the football some. And can they do it? That'll be one of the things that you look at in that game.
Was the comment I made on Auburn basketball to start the podcast this morning. When one thing's not working, are you good enough at the other to still win ball games? And that's the beauty of Auburn basketball this year. If we're not hitting from the perimeter, we can win down in the post and vice versa. And so I think that's a valid point that Cam Newton brings up. If someone's able to point to you and say, I'm stopping that, you're not going to beat me doing that. You have to beat me doing something else. Have you proven that you can do multiple things to win ball games? And some of these teams I don't feel like have. Penn State, though, tip your hat to Penn State, Brett. That is a good football team.
It is a good football
That is a very solid football team, well put together, very well coached.
They're a Boise State win away from being in the semifinal, man. I'm telling you.
I know it, and deserving to be there. And Tony Franklin, not Tony Franklin, but James Franklin, he is, gosh, don't let me cuss him saying that, but he's one of the best college football coaches we've got out there. He is. He puts a great product out there year in and year out.
Yeah, he really built Penn State back up. I mean, he did. He left Vanderbilt. He's by far the best coach Vanderbilt has ever had. I know Clark Lee's doing a good job, but, man, I don't know that there's ever been one to do what he was able to do at Vanderbilt. All right, Texas and Arizona State. Texas is a 14-point favorite over Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. So get your thoughts on that game. There's still parts of Texas and parts of games where they just – man, their offense goes away, dude. I mean, it just absolutely goes away. Arizona State is that sneaky team this year I think you better watch. If there's a potential for an upset, I think it's in this game right here.
Well, they better stop the run. You know, watching Texas, the thing that I don't think they get enough national credit for is how great those two running backs are. Not only just turning around and handing it to them, but out of the backfield catching the football too, Brett.
Right.
And when they get to your secondary, it's Katie bar the door. It's one of mine in your broadcast. It's bye-bye. You know, you've got those players that once they hit the secondary, you can just go ahead and write 6 up. We've had them over the years when you and I are doing broadcasts together, and I felt that way watching Texas the other night, man. You get to the secondary, write it on up. And so big play potential for Texas is very impressive, and quarterback play has had its moments where it hasn't been up to the standard that you would expect with those two kind of great guys. But when you run the football and you hit big plays like Texas can, and you've got one of the best offensive minds that's ever done it, Sark, calling plays, they can win it. You can still watch it, and they can win it. I'll say the same thing I did a few weeks ago. Until Georgia proves me wrong, I think Georgia can play Texas 10 times and win all of them.
Yeah. Can Scatterbo play, run? And I mean, man,
back to Cam Newton's comments. Do I point to him and say I don't care what happened, and as good as defensive line is for Texas, I don't believe. But Arizona State, I haven't watched enough to have a real solid comment on that. But I would be shocked if Arizona State lines up and just runs it down Texas's throat. I don't believe that's going to happen.
All right, Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite in this game in the Rose Bowl. Again, that game will be at 4:00 on New Year's Day. That Texas-Arizona State game will get things kicked off on New Year's Day at noon. So then you go to the 4:00 game, Ohio State and Oregon. Ohio State's a 2.5-point favorite over the number one team in this college football playoff. And it tells you, man, there's a lot of people that feel like that Rose Bowl, Ohio State's going to be ready to play.
I think they're the most talented team out there. And with that being said, you know, they've got to play down to the competition but they've proven they can, Britt. And so, but if you're scheming up the way that they were the other night offensively and taking some shots down
that's Chip Kelly against his old team, by the way.
Yeah, he had a lot of movement. He had a lot of eye candy going on, and he's got some bows and joes that we all want. If their quarterback plays good, he doesn't have to play great, but he can't play mediocre. If he can play good to great, I still watching them moving forward, I think it's theirs to lose right now. And that's the reason they're the number one team's a 2.5-point dog to them right now. I think that's probably a reasonable guess on what's going to go down with that. I was that impressed with Ohio State the other night.
Yeah, Glenn comes up with a good point. He said, will it be a slow start for these teams that got to bye? I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, Boise State, Arizona State, Oregon, and then Georgia, they all been sitting at the house. These other teams got a game under their belt. I mean, you know, we'll see. This is the first time we've seen the college football playoff. And, again, we've already got a little bit of analysis on what we thought about the first round and how big the discrepancy was in those games. Now we see bye teams. We see it hurt Major League Baseball, you know, in these playoffs now. The teams that get that bye in the first round, it's hurt them. It's hurt them because they've kind of gotten out of rhythm a little bit after you played 162 games. You take a week off and you wait on somebody to come play. You kind of get out of your rhythm a little bit. So will some of these teams, we'll see. I think that may be part of it too. Notre Dame and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans at 7:45 on New Year's Day. That night, Georgia is a 1.5-point favorite in that game.
I'm not a betting man, but I'd bet the house on Georgia. I would. I mean, they've got to play so poorly on the offensive side of the ball to give Notre Dame a chance, in my opinion. I mean, I cannot see a way that Notre Dame gets 24 points in this game. Do you see it?
I just look. I can't get past the Notre Dame teams of the past that have been 12-1 and gotten into these games and gotten their doors blown off. I don't remember the last time. Notre Dame won a big game. I mean, they get here and they just can't get over the hump. And Justin said that it's because of the backup quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. I thought Gunnar Stockton looked pretty good in the few series he came in against Texas. Now, again, it's a different environment, and the bowl game, and there's a lot riding on this game, and he's got to be the starter. Now, that there is a storyline to that, but Gunnar Stockton was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school. He's the backup for Georgia. So
dual threat.
Yep. So we'll see, but that may be one he's talking about. Maybe.
No, I agree. I agree with Justin. I think the reason that you see this line as close as it is probably only because of that. But the quarterback play for Georgia, if anything, has been subpar compared to the years past that we've seen. So maybe Stockton with a couple of weeks to get prepared brings a skill set into this game that helps them. I'll stick with what I'm saying. If Notre Dame beats Georgia, I'd be shocked.
Oh, I think everybody will. I think if I had to pick a team in this playoff right now that I would ride with, it'd probably be Georgia. Somebody's got to prove that you can beat Georgia and knock them out of this thing before I'll take that side. But Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon, to me, are the three best teams left. And yes, I'm sorry, Glenn, I'm not dissing you. Texas Longhorns are good, but they've played Georgia twice this year, and I just don't know that anybody wants to see that again. I mean, I think that if they navigate their way to the championship game, tip your hat. All you can do is play the team in front of you, and if they win to get to that championship game, they've definitely earned it, right? But I think the rest of the country, if they have to watch Georgia and Texas for the third time, is going to go, ugh. I think that could be the worst thing that could happen for this playoff outside of the bad start this past week in the first round, is if they get a Texas-Georgia rematch. Because it'd be the third time you played each other, man. And Georgia's already proven that, they can go in there and they can go to their place and win. They can win on a so-called neutral field, which it really wasn't. It was really a home game in the Mercedes Dome, and then they got to go right back over there and play them again in Atlanta. So Glenn said third time's a charm, Brett. Okay. Hey, if I'm a Texas fan, I want another shot at them. Why not? Because you've already been beat twice, and if you beat them this time, you get to take the trophy home with you. They get to keep the SEC championship trophy. You get to have the big dog trophy.
Penn State can win it too. Penn State, the only loss that we've seen with Penn State this year, they were in that football game, Brett. So I don't think that we give them anywhere near enough credit for how good a football team they've got this year.
No, I totally agree with that. Steven said, Cam Newton said, no play, no pay. Players are not student athletes anymore. Under his breath, they're employees. Didn't we say that last Friday, Randy, on the podcast, that's where we are with this now? I mean,
yep.
I really thought Cam Newton was spot on with most of his analysis this past week, not only with the portal and NIL, but with this college football playoff. And he was not taking a shot at SMU, and he was not taking a shot at Boise. He was not taking a shot at any of those. He said, but we've seen this over and over and over. He said, we saw it with TCU. He said, this is about matching lines of scrimmage. And that's what Patrick said earlier in a comment, is that Notre Dame has their hands full, in the line of scrimmage with Georgia. Even Notre Dame against these games are won in the line of scrimmage. I mean, you saw it in that Tennessee game. Ohio State just mauled Tennessee up front, and they could not get any pressure. And Will Howard just stood back there like a statue and just surveyed the field. And you can't expect your secondary to cover those kind of receivers all night. They can't do it.
They won't. It's what separated Alabama and Georgia from everyone else over the last decade plus. And, until some of these teams prove that they can put – and Texas is really close, Brett. Texas is really close on the lines of scrimmage, especially the defensive line. I mean, they sent two to the pros last year, and I don't think they've taken much of a step back this year. But you've got to win the lines of scrimmage, and we've said it for a long, long time, but Georgia and Alabama have been the poster child for how you build a football team around those lines of scrimmage. The reason they've won as much as they have.
All right, so here's a comment coming in. It says, guys, you say you want to see development like basketball. You've got a talented team full of seniors with 2 freshmen. Football has a team full of mid players with a bunch of freshmen. It takes time, 2 different sports. So I'm gonna say that I don't think we have a team full of mid players. If you go look, I don't know what the roster star rankings are, but we've even had Jason Caldwell on, and in the last couple of years, I agree. Yeah, the cupboard was kind of left bare, but this is 3 going into the year 3 of really 2.5 solid recruiting classes, and the portal and the way things have been brought in, and what Auburn's going to put on the field. I mean, that's the thing about the portal. You go out and get a guy that's got experience that you feel like can step in and play now and be a major part. And then these guys are coming in January. By the time the season gets here, they will have been on campus for 9 months. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying there's multiple ways to look at this. This is not some bare bones roster Auburn's putting out. Now, I know they're competing against Georgia and Alabama, but I mean, all these teams are playing young guys too. They're playing freshmen as well.
Back to the basketball comment there. You're paying these coaches to retain guys and to go and get the pieces that they feel like they need to build a program like Auburn's got in basketball. And the comments that we make towards Hugh Freeze is that once you get into year 3, year 4, there's no excuses anymore. The guys that you've got around you are the ones you've chosen. And every other school out there is dealing with the same problems that we are. So Hugh Freeze, it's time for him to prove that he can develop players to the same standard that we're getting on the basketball side. And if he can't, there's too many of us out there that are questioning it right now. And Brett keeps saying it, and I'll agree with him. He's in the show me state, and I am too with this football program because my eyes tell me Deuce Knight's going to be great if he's developed. Now, is Auburn going to be the place to develop him? I've yet to see that. We've got 15 years back that Auburn's proven they can't develop a high school quarterback to get them to their peak play. Bo Nix was close, but he never got to his peak play at Auburn. And I'm here for it. I'm hopeful that we can. But if Deuce Knight, if we can't develop him to be an all-SEC caliber quarterback, then I've got very little confidence in what we've currently got there pulling it off.
2025 was a year to compete, maybe make a little noise, beating a team we shouldn't. And 26 was always going to be the year unless special quarterback showed up. To be consistent winner, the process is taking place. Look, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not saying – but we all know that Auburn shouldn't have been 5-7 this year, and
agree.
And look, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting 5-7 when you go out and lose to Cal and Missouri with basically a backup quarterback couldn't move the football at all.
Oklahoma that had no wide receivers coming in.
21-10 lead. Now look, I know Alex McPherson being out. If Auburn has Alex McPherson in the Missouri game and the Oklahoma game, I think we'll win the game. I do. I think we'll put the game away, and that's unfortunate. But the Cal game and the Arkansas game at home, that Arkansas game, again, Peyton Thorne being benched, putting Hank Brown in, the inconsistency of trying to figure out who you want to put at quarterback right there. When you did not go out and get a quarterback, and you said it right there in that comment, unless we had a special quarterback. Well, he decided to ride with Peyton Thorne. I mean, did he just want to wad this past year up and throw it away? I didn't wad my money up and throw it away. Actually, I did.
Yeah,
but,
you did.
That's what we're expected to continue to press forward. Why didn't the portal was open last year? You don't think we could have won 9 games with Cam Ward? Would that have been a well-spent $1.5 million to go get Cam Ward this year? And then add this recruiting class coming in, then add Jackson Arnold or Deuce Knight and this group to come in and follow him up. Would that not have worked? Look, we can analyze this thing 6 ways to Sunday. I mean, and I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm exactly right, but I think Auburn should have been at least a 7-win team this year.
I think we can say that we haven't developed on the offensive side over the last decade plus.
And our defense kicked ass
Yeah, I
all
agree
year.
with that.
You want to look at the defensive side. I remember coming out of the Cal game going, this may be the worst secondary Auburn's put out there in years. And you know what they did? They just got better every week and became one of the best secondaries with 2 freshmen on the field, by the way, back there playing their butts off. And then you add the group that's coming in defensively now to this group. I mean, they were already knocking on a top 10 defense this year. And they played well enough in every football game to give Auburn a chance to win. The deficiencies came on the offensive side. I don't think anybody's arguing with that. So now you got 3 or 4 returning starters on the offensive line, and then you add these 2 tackles and these other guys that are coming in that you recruited, and you got a transfer portal quarterback that's ranked highly as Jackson Arnold is, who, by the way, is the highest ranked quarterback Auburn's ever brought in. Okay, so you get a running back room that, you lose Jarquez Hunter, but you got 2 really solid guys back there. And then you add the kid from UConn coming in and Darrell Robinson. And then you just added Eric Singleton, who is the number 1 receiver in the portal, along with this class of receivers, which you didn't lose any of these freshmen. They all stayed. You get Cam Coleman back, who I thought got horrendously underutilized the first half of the season. Now they started throwing in the ball the second half of the season, and he showed what he could do. I thought Malcolm Simmons had a great year. He could have had an even better year if they'd have gotten him involved some more. So I'm telling you, man, I think we're just past that point. I think if Jackson Arnold can come out and produce, I think Auburn's got all the pieces to come in and do what they need.
Thanks to everybody out there for tuning in this morning on a Monday. We've got a lot to talk about, but let's talk about some of our great sponsors that allow us to bring this podcast to you every morning. Let's start, Brett, with Sensagreen, our good friend Wade Bennett. Sensagreen's got 3 great locations around the state of Alabama. First off, over in Auburn, Opelika area. I have moved it into the Lake Martin region and also up in Huntsville. So for air that's cool and clean, call on Sensagreen, and we hope to have Wade on our podcast with us. They're a carrier dealer, one of the top carrier dealers in the state of Alabama. So call on Sensagreen. And I'm down here in Dadeville, Alabama, and we're wide open. I had a comment this morning wanting to know, are y'all busy? I mean, why are y'all busy this week? I said, well, I mean, first off, on the sign side, Brett, a lot of people were holding off on major projects because of the election. Lots of people were. And when that election went the way that they wanted it to go, those projects turned on. So here we are at the end of December. A lot of those projects turned on in November, and they're expecting their stuff up and want it up by the end of the year. So we're wide open with Sign Source. We've got 3 brand new lift trucks that we've added to our arsenal this year. One's a 90-foot lift. You can call on us from design all the way to installation for Sign Source, 256-825-0197. And Lee Apparel, we're 20-plus years in the business and been around the textile market forever when it comes to my dad and others. 256-825-0197 for all of your apparel, printing needs, promotional products. Lee Apparel can help.
All right, Auburn Blitz will be on at noon today. Again, Jim and Andy will be on. They'll have a lot to talk about. Obviously, we had over an hour's worth this morning. There's a bunch going on with Auburn Athletics. So make sure you tune them in at noon. And if you're a charter subscription carrier, 701 is the channel. And, of course, YouTube and Facebook each and every day. You can pull that in right here just like you do our podcast. So thanks to everybody. Again, we will have – I don't know that we'll have a podcast in the morning. It's Christmas Eve. We got a lot going on, and I know that we'll just have to wait and see. But if not, I know we'll be off on Christmas Day, and then we'll be back with you the day after Christmas. So if we don't see all of you before then, we hope you have a wonderful and Merry Christmas out there. Be safe, and we'll catch you down the line.